Okay, we saved the two best issues for last.
All right.
And these kind of go into what, the three campaign issues that you've been discussing with a lot of other people, but I may have some questions you haven't gotten.
Great. Let's hear them.
So we're going to save the school issue for the end.
Okay.
And let's talk about workforce housing.
Wonderful.
Again, I've been covering news events in Mesquite since 2007. Mm-hmm. I've covered elections every year since then, and every year, or every campaign, workforce housing.
Yeah.
And here we are, still talking workforce housing. I think sometimes, and I'm not picking on you.
No, yeah, that's...
I think sometimes, it's kind of like Congress. They don't want to solve some of these issues because then they wouldn't have anything to run on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're right. I couldn't agree more.
So, first off, let's kind of hit on the Nevada Rural Housing Authority.
Yeah.
It used to aggravate me to death every year. We would just hand them over our bonding funding.
Still do. Just
And,
did a few months ago.
I would read about all of these projects that they were doing in Ely and Elko and Winnemucca and, Cove Springs and nothing ever here. Well, now apparently this year the council actually said, well, maybe we won't give it to you this year.
Mm-hmm.
And
so we did that last year.
Yeah.
And then started that, right.
And they swoop in and now they're proposing a $52 million housing project on Hillside Drive.
Right.
Well, good for them, finally. But here's my question.
Uh-huh.
And this is one that nobody ever talks about.
Yeah.
We've had quite a few affordable housing projects proposed in different places in Mesquite. And they have been turned down by the council. One of them is the housing apartment complex, if I remember right, that was proposed next to the Virgin Valley Elementary School.
Correct.
And what killed that was NIMBY, not in my backyard.
Right.
And that is, sad to say, a very prevalent attitude in Mesquite. Mm-hmm. And, I actually had a guy email me a couple weeks ago who was, really very critical or very nasty about shoving everything to the south side because that's where it belongs. Mm-hmm. And sad to say, that's not the first time I've heard that.
Right.
But I've lived on the south side for 19 years and I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Much better than the north side.
Uh-huh.
But here's the project, another project, $52 million on Hillside Drive as you come out of the driveway to the school.
Yeah.
There's another one that was just, people were buying a land on Hafen Lane. And again, the NIMBY came out that, I don't want any of that kind of housing in my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And so how do you combat that? How do you deal with that?
Right. So I think you raised two important issues there. The first one I want to talk about is I'm running because on the campaign trail and living in this community, loving this beautiful community, there's these ideas, right, that we have these competing mesquites, that there's either the retirement community and the family community, or the north side and the south side.
That's a good point, you know. I mean, we do have, it seems like, blocks.
And here's what I'll tell you, Barb. On the campaign trail, people want to see those gaps. They want to see those gaps bridged. I don't believe those gaps are real in the first place. I thought at one time they were. I thought, boy, that's just how it is. That's what I've been told. On the campaign trail, I simply haven't seen that. And I'll talk about that later. I'm sure we'll have questions where I can talk a little more about that. I want to get to your question. First, the not in my backyard mentality. I'm going to get there. When we talk about this project that Nevada Rural Housing Authority is proposing, $52 million. Well, Nevada Rural Housing Authority had an opportunity, a full opportunity, to discuss that at a council meeting a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that.
Yeah.
What they talked about was the mortgage program that they have in place. They talked about how they're helping people get mortgages. It wasn't until a concerned citizen got up and said, "You're not building any projects here." And in response to that, they said, "We got something coming. Don't you worry about it, public. Don't you worry. We'll take care of it." They didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to discuss it. We subsequently found out that what they're planning is a 200-unit apartment complex, not affordable, market rate, to be built right next to our high school neighborhood. And here's my position on that.
Yeah, about 50 yards from I-15.
That's exactly right. We need affordable housing, but we need affordable housing that fits our community. When we talk about this issue of, boy, this is something people run on all the time and then nothing gets done. Well, the only time affordable housing comes up on our council agendas is every year when we hand our bond cap over to Nevada Rural Housing Authority. We're not doing anything during council meetings and talking about it and saying, where are we at? What's our status on this? Where are we going here? We're not putting out enough incentives. What we need to do is have affordable housing that fits the character of our community and assist businesses and the community at large in moving forward. So my proposal on the Nevada Rural Housing Project, where they want to do 200 market rate apartments that may not be affordable to many people, is let's do a land swap. The city owns thousands of acres of land.
Yeah.
By the way, many of those acres are in our downtown corridor, right along Mesquite Boulevard.
Exactly.
Let's do a land swap. Let's take some of those multifamily housing units and let's put them on the boulevard. Let's put them on the boulevard with mixed-use business buildings that will make our boulevard look beautiful, that will increase foot traffic for our businesses along the boulevard, that will allow for access into our schools. It's a walkable distance from the school down there, so we don't have groceries, everything. We don't have 9 different school buses driving up to that hillside apartment complex every morning, picking up different routes of students to take them to Virgin Valley Elementary School. And I appreciate that Nevada Rural Housing Authority, I'm sure in their mind, thinks they're doing a wonderful thing and it's a wonderful proposal. Our community's job, and I believe more than anyone the mayor's job, is to be that cheerleader and defender of the city and say, hey, that project doesn't work. And not just to say that project doesn't work, but to say, here's a project that does work. And if this project doesn't work, here's another one that would work. And if that one doesn't work, here's another one that would work. And we negotiate and we cut and we figure it out until we have something that the community is happy with. So I think that is our biggest problem. When we talk about certain areas of town and where affordable housing should or shouldn't be, we have private developers that do want to do projects on the north side of town. They're feasible projects. They're great looking projects. They include things like modular houses. And if you haven't seen modular houses lately, they look gorgeous. They look like regular houses. They don't look the way they did 20 years ago. We can put those projects up and they're single family housing units, and they allow our residents and the employees of businesses that are trying to grow here in town to, take that first step in the American dream of home ownership and start to build equity and build wealth. And they're able to do that at a very low cost. Those are the types of things we need to go after.
What incentives do you think the city should offer?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all,
developers.
Yes. So I'm endorsed by 2 former mayors, 2 current council members, and a congressman, Crescent Hardy, who used to be on our city council. When I've talked to them, along with other former city council members from 15, 20 years ago, and asked them the question, why did we buy up all this land back in the 90s? Why did we do that? Their answer is always uniform, and it's so that we could give it away and do good projects with it. We could help economic development. We could help affordable housing. Now, that doesn't mean we just hand it out and say good luck to you and we're passing off deeds. We need to cut good deals with competent and capable developers to do these projects at low cost so that they can still make money, but we're improving our community. And when we do that, here's what we do. Right now, we make no property tax dollars on properties that the city holds. The city doesn't pay itself a
Exactly.
property tax, right?
Exactly.
So we need to get those lands off the city books, get them into the hands of competent, capable developers so that they are beautifying the land, they're fulfilling a need in the community, and then by the way, that's bringing more revenue into the city so that when we talk about these problems like long-term, how do we handle employee pay, how do we solve those problems, we're solving it. We're putting drops back into our bucket that will help the city sustain itself through reasonable managed growth.
You said you were going to go back to the NIMBY?
Yeah, so on the NIMBY, we see that, I think that's part of what City Council has to manage, right? I've seen a few issues that bring people out in droves to City Council meetings.
Yeah.
And I've been to every single City Council meeting for the last 8 years except 2. I've only missed 2 council meetings in 8 years. And I was on the phone for both of those. And so I've never technically been absent from a council meeting. And there is NIMBY, this not in my backyard thought, that is one of the things that brings people out in droves, right? If there's something going in your neighborhood, and here's the thing, people should come out. If they don't think something is good for their neighborhood or their area,
Yeah.
they need to come out and talk about those things. Council and the mayor's office need to listen, and they need to understand, and they need to work to resolve problems. Too often, I feel, the result from that has never been, hey, let's figure out something that works. Let's get together, let's have a conversation. It ends up becoming this us versus them mentality. City Hall versus the public, and we need leadership that says, hey, we represent the residents of this community. They want us to be responsive. If you don't want to be responsive, don't run for city council. Don't get up there on the board. If you are willing to work and try to understand our residents, try to understand their concerns, try to resolve those concerns where possible, get over to City Hall, put your name in the hat to run for office, and good luck to you.
Well,
that's what we need.
It's been my experience as an elected official that if you are doing it so people like you,
Yeah,
save
right.
your money.
That's exactly it.
If you're doing it to make new friends, no, get a dog.
Oh, I've learned that on the campaign trail itself, Barb. So I fully am aware of that.
Get a dog.